The time is 9:02, and we come to order in the meeting of the Board of Directors for the Texas Appraisal Licensing and Certification Board. Let's go to call to order and Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Reed Lynch, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Martha. Okay, we're going to move to agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action to excuse board members' absences, if any. Today, Mr. McAnally and Mr. Egelberger have excused absences, and I will make a motion as such, or have a motion as such.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we accept the absences of the 2 board members.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we'll have opening remarks. Good morning. It is an honor to step in the role of chairman of TALCB. I'd like to begin by thanking the prior leadership of this board for their steadfast service and thoughtful stewardship. Your work has built a strong foundation of integrity, professionalism, and public trust, a legacy I intend to uphold and carry forward. I also want to recognize our dedicated TALCB staff. Your commitment to regulatory efficiency, education, and fairness is the backbone of our mission. I am grateful for your work behind the scenes to ensure appraisers across Texas are supported and standards are enforced with clarity and consistency. As chair, my focus will be threefold. First, to uphold the public trust, which is the cornerstone of our regulatory mandate. Second, to continue our efforts in lowering barriers to entry without compromising standards. Third, to strengthen our support for licensed appraisers who serve an essential role in the health of our real estate markets and the protection of property rights. Together, we will promote an appraisal ecosystem in Texas that is inclusive, fair, and accountable. I look forward to working with each of you in service to the people of this great state. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to like to move to agenda item number 4, welcoming our 2 new board members, Mark Luna and Clayton Ripley. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you. And Clayton is a CPA here in Austin, and Mark is a real estate appraiser in Lubbock. So we welcome you here and thank you for your service to the state of Texas. Okay, next we need to elect a vice chair. I will hear any nominations.
Chairman? That's a new one. That's not. I was almost there.
Yes, Mr. Castro.
I would like to nominate Martha for the position of vice chair.
Okay,
I second.
I have a nomination, a second.
That's
Any
not-
other nominations?
I'm not supposed to second. I'm sorry, that wasn't a motion. I was just so excited, Martha Gill. I'm sorry.
Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Okay, as such, we have 1 nomination, Martha Gail Reed Lynch. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, you are now Vice Chair Reed Lynch.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to other appointments. So we have some vacancies on some of it, and we just happen to have some new members that, so this works out well. So I would like to add in, well, I'll just go through each of the committees. Budget and Finance, Stephanie Robinson is the chair. Paola is on that committee, as well as now is Clayton Riley. Education and Licensing, Mark McAnally is the chair. Mr. Castro is on that committee as well, and now also Mark Luna. The Enforcement Committee stays the same, and the Executive Committee has the addition of Martha Gale as vice chair, and the TREC and TALCB Joint Audit Committee, I will remain that committee member. And so that concludes our assignments. 7, general comments from visitors on non-agenda items. Have we seen any? Okay, we have none, so we will move on to agenda item 8, ratification of the official record of the May 16th, 2025 board meeting as approved for posting on the website by the Secretary of the Board. Those minutes are in your materials. Does anybody have any questions, clarifications, or comments? Okay, therefore I would entertain a motion to approve the board minutes.
Chair vote. Oh, I'm sorry.
I move that the board ratify the minutes of the May 16th, 2025 board meeting.
And I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Agenda item number 9, there are 2 final orders, and you can see those in your meeting materials. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, we will move to the next agenda item, the report by the Executive Committee. And those reports are in the meeting materials, all of the committee meeting reports. As far as the Executive Committee, a couple of things I just wanted to just touch on. We are still watching, and I know that staff is diligently working on the new Realm portal. We have somewhat of a delay in getting that implemented to make sure that it meets the needs of appraisers. And so I just, we were updated on that and continue to be updated on that. So we're looking forward to that launch this fall, I think. Yes? Okay, great, okay. We also discussed a potential for appraisal experience through certain IRS programs, and IRS has certain confidentiality rules that prohibit appraisers from disseminating their experience, the appraisals for experience credit. So we're working with them to try to develop a program in order for them to gain experience. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is, well, we're going to talk about that later, so that's no big deal. So that's the report from the Executive Committee. Any questions? Okay, then we'll go to the next item 6B, Budget and Finance Committee. Ms. Robinson?
Yes, so our team has been working very hard this session to present a budget that we feel very comfortable with in terms for the board to review and to possibly approve. We went through a very rigorous process. The staff was incredible in putting together different options for us to look at for that budget and in terms of our excess funding. So we had a chance to comb through all those opportunities as well. You'll see the notes here in the committee note, or you'll see our notes here in the committee report. But if you have any questions, please let me know. And I know later on today, we're going to be reviewing the actual budget that'll be presented to the board for consideration.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Any questions? Okay, moving on to 6C, the TREC and TALCB Joint Audit Committee. In that committee meeting, largely what we discussed and put forth is that what are the next audits that we will be doing between the two agencies. And we all agreed that the enforcement divisions should be audited because they haven't been. And then that would be followed by a payroll process audit. And so that will be moving forward in those areas. Our audit the company that does the audits. Okay, any questions? All right, okay.
Education.
Oh, yes, sorry, education.
All right, I'll go ahead and, Mr. McAnally is not here today, so I'm going to go ahead and take over for him for the Education and Licensing Committee. Just two items that kind of showed up and we will be discussing in this meeting is regarding the first one is regarding the the approval of the of practicum program, and it's just another avenue in order to for aspiring appraisers to gain experience. And we discussed this in committee and wanted to bring it to the larger board for either more open discussion and clarity, and trying to make sure that as Chairman Bolton was talking about, trying to alleviate more barriers to entry to our profession. So I think this is another possibility to do that. So, but once again, this item will be taken up a little bit later in the meeting. And then the second one was the upgrading a license with experience that appraisers already had. If there was a provision that we were having aspiring appraisers trying to get an upgraded license or an upgraded certification, that they had to turn in all of their experience, and we're trying to get to a point where, since they've already had that starting experience, all they would have to do is that incremental experience, that experience that's necessary in order to get that higher license certification. So that's another discussion that we're going to have in a broader sense later in the meeting. But we in the committee were encouraged by that, and we're trying to go ahead and pull that forward. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castro. Any questions? And I apologize for skipping it in front of you.
No, it's fine.
Okay, on to agenda item 14, staff reports on agency operations, initiatives, and statistical data.
Good morning.
Good
Chelsea
morning.
Buckholz, Executive Director. It's 9:15 and we are on agenda item 14. So this is like a new record. I wanted to welcome our new board members, Mr. Luna and Mr. Ripley. I look forward to knowing you and working with each of you. Thank you for saying yes to this appointment. And Chairman Bolton, congratulations to you on your chairmanship. I look forward to working more closely with you as we've already begun the last few months. I will be short. I have a few items that I want to just mention to you. The chairman mentioned the Realm portal. This is the name we have attached to our new license management database, which we have previously referred to as RAMP, or sometimes by the vendor who is helping us implement this system, Acela. But we decided to poll our stakeholders about what we should call this new system. We used social media, we used a survey, we used a polling tool within our newsletters. We gave people a couple of weeks to weigh in on their favorite name, and the results were close. But the Real Estate and License Management Portal, Realm portal, won out among those who voted. You'll hear us refer to that new system as the Realm portal from here on out. We're still kind of filing it in our brain, trying to get that front of mind. But speaking of this new portal, as the chair mentioned, we are delayed. We anticipated completion and a go live to happen this month, late in August. The events that are occurring as we speak are informing the answer to the obvious question of when will we go live? We're currently testing a small mock data conversion to determine its success, to then determine what happens next. Data conversion, all of the data in our old system, converting to the new system, and then testing that out and making sure there are no glitches. That plus integrating with external systems like the DPS fingerprint system, like education, or like examination services, all of the ways in which multiple systems need to interact with this new system. Those are our two challenges: data conversion and integration. I will let you know as I have concrete information. I am extremely hopeful about a go live later this year, but this data conversion is really what is holding us up as of now. Stay tuned on that.
Well, please keep us updated and let us know if you need additional resources.
I will.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Governmental relations update. As you know, we had a legislative session from January through June. It ended on June 2nd. And House Bill 3250 was one of many bills that passed during that session. And that is what we call the board's housekeeping bill. It's composed primarily of cleanup items and then a couple of board initiatives that many of you know about. The bill is effective September 1, 2025, and so we're, shoulder deep in implementation of that. So this bill does many things. One of the things it does, it gives the board rulemaking authority to adopt rules to administer a stipend program, to award funds to aspiring appraisers and certified appraisers serving as sponsors. This would only be funded through grants and donations, not through fees. But by having that rulemaking authority, we have that placeholder there should donations and grants be made available for that stipend program. You may also recall a bill that passed 2 years ago, last session, that required us to remove contact information from our websites because our systems do not differentiate between whether contact information provided was personal and therefore private information under the law or business contact information. So another change made from our housekeeping bill is that the board now has the authority to collect and display on our website the business contact information of license holders. So you'll see that roll out with the Realm portal go live. So we have built that into our new system.
How will that work? Is this something we're inviting people to come and provide that information?
It's information that we already collect, but it's really the differentiation between personal and business. And then it does a little bit of a revert back so that it's easier to find license holders on our website like it was before and then to interact with each other. But it does so within the bounds of utilizing business information and not the under the law protected personal information.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. You'll also see some proposed rule changes later today that are related to other bills passed during session. One bill modified several provisions of Chapter 53 of the Texas Occupations Code related to the revocation of a license from certain license holders, and then the issuance of a license to certain applicants with criminal convictions. So it kind of changes the requirements of criminal convictions or of revocations and the issuance of license related to criminal convictions. Another rule proposal is the result of a bill passed that makes it easier for military service members, veterans, spouses who hold a current license issued in another state, and that state has a similar scope of practice. That's the legislative update. You'll see those last two mentions you'll see in rules later today, and we can unpack it there. Another change happening, unrelated to session, but on a national level, there is a new requirement regarding valuation bias in fair housing that's coming. It's coming beginning January of 2026, so just a few months away. There's a new federal requirement that will take effect. So all license holders and new applicants will be required to complete a valuation bias in fair housing course. These requirements were adopted by the AQB back in June of 2023, 3 years, or closer, or 2 years ago now. It applies to anyone whose license expires in January 2026 or later, and then also to any applicant who has approved on or after January of 2026. We've been communicating this change in requirements through our newsletters for the past couple of years. So, and we have just recently significantly increased that outreach effort. So this should not be a surprise to anyone. Of course, it will be to someone, but it shouldn't be.
And I'm sorry, that is effective September?
January.
January, I'm so sorry, January, okay, thank
Is
you.
that for every renewal of a license, or is it?
I believe so. Is that correct? Yes. Every renewal.
Okay.
Are those courses out yet?
Yes, I took one.
Okay.
I took it already.
Yes, they're out. I love the support I'm
And
getting
we've-
over here.
And we've approved several.
Appraisal Institute has one. That's the one I just recently took.
Okay. Yeah, and there's several.
Good.
I'd be interested to get feedback on what you guys think of how the course.
I haven't taken one yet, so.
One more update. The ASC is currently in a transition phase and has named Ray Frederick as a new interim executive director, replacing Matt Ponzer, who is also an interim executive director. So Ray, new interim, has been leading the grants function at the ASC and is someone that our staff has worked with regularly and is very familiar with. The ASC is still in the process of searching for a permanent executive director. There doesn't seem to be a clear timeline on when that appointment might be made. One more thing. Arrow is October 6th through 8th. It's in Atlanta, Georgia. Please let me know if you'd like to attend. We'll have a small group of our staff that attend, but I'd love to know if any of you would like to attend as well. We need to get those plans in place in short order, so shoot me an email or let me know today.
Kelsey, for our new members, could you maybe,
What is that?
yeah, tell them what that is?
What is Arrow? And it
Another
occurs to me
acronym.
that I should talk about the AQB and the ASC and all of those things, but I'll stick with Arrow for now. Arrow is the entity of regulators of appraisers throughout the country. So it is administrators and board members like me and you from across the country that gather and hear from the national entities like ASC, AQB, and we kind of coordinate conversations and efforts to just hear how things are going in other states. They meet twice a year, typically in October and then in the spring, kind of April-ish.
And I was just sharing with Clayton earlier as a public member, that was incredibly helpful when I came on the board first. So I do encourage our new members, if you're available, to definitely attend. It would be very informative for you.
That concludes my remarks. Happy to answer any questions.
I did have a question. If we could talk a little bit about the funding stipend, grants and donations, I think you mentioned is how it's going to be funded. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that and where those grants and donations will come from?
You know, this really is a placeholder. We have not identified grants and funds for that as of now. Initially, the thought was that we would get this law changed simultaneous to applying for a grant through the ASC.
Okay.
Since then, ASC pivoted to what is an acceptable use of those funds, and it is no longer to reduce barriers to entry, which this stipend would address. So it will be interesting to see if there is a further pivot at the ASC. I would not be surprised.
Okay.
But until then, we kind of sit tight and wait and see.
And then just so I understand, this stipend approval was at a state level as opposed to a federal level of enforcement? I mean, in terms of,
The law that changed?
Yeah, the law that
Yes, so
changed.
we were needing to change our enabling legislation to allow, to create the authority to allow us to issue those stipends.
okay, and then the effective date of starting that again?
Well, the effective date for that bill is September 1st, but we do not have a date to start a stipend program.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. And then, let's see. Thank you for the IT update too on the portal. I know you guys have been working incredibly hard on that, and we really appreciate it. And anytime you have that big of a transition in data integration and all that, there's always going to be things you just don't expect, right? So, so I appreciate you and the staff for being very diligent and staying on top of that to get that rolled out. So thank you for sharing that. The other thing, let's see. Yep, I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else?
Thank you, Chelsea. Any questions? Any more questions? Okay. We're going to change things up a little bit and now hear agenda items 24 and 27. And we're.
How do you feel about doing 27 and then 24? Just to really mix it up.
Yeah, well,
You okay with
Keep you
that?
on your toes.
totally fine with that.
I'm running lead on 24, and I think it might inform 27 just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Before you today are changes to the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between TREC and TALCB. So this is a long-standing document that predates me, and it historically outlines the shared costs and resources of our combined agency, TREC and TALCB. In Exhibit A of this MOU, which you'll see on page 166 of your materials, you'll see a list of estimated percentages of staff time covered by the board, where specific staff responsibilities have dual roles. So these percentages have changed over the years as duties and responsibilities have shifted. So an example is I spend part of my time with TREC, I spend part of my time with TALCB. There's a percentage attached to my time. Two things have occurred this year that requires changes to Exhibit A. We shifted duties from the recording secretary, Amber, to a public information officer to handle public information requests. And we've outlined a 10% shared cost there, so 10% cost to TALCB. Additionally, we shifted the education function for the board from the TREC Education Division to the TALCB umbrella, but without additional staff. So this resulted in a cost savings to the board, essentially where the board used to pay 50% of a staff member shared with TREC for educational services. That is now covered by existing board staff. So collectively, charging the 10% for public information officer, but saving on the education function, these changes result in a cost savings of approximately $15,500
To the board.
to the board. Okay, so as I've discussed with some of you previously, you'll notice what is not listed in the MOU under Exhibit A as expenses TALCB covers. These include human resources, finance, IT, and communication support. TALCB enjoys the benefits of these functions, but because there has not been a specific percentage of an identified staff used to cover these functions, they have not before been expenses covered by the board or included in this MOU. I do not know why, but that has just historically been what this document has looked like. As such, staff, I recommend adding a provision in the MOU, currently on page 2 of the draft MOU, page 164 in your materials. There's a mention of an additional cost allocation, but not a specified amount. I think right now it's like XX. I recommend a general cost allocation payment by TALCB of $15,500. That's the same amount that you're saving by the shifts in specific staff. By doing so, TALCB expenses remain flush, but it provides a good faith payment towards a general administrative expenses that TREC currently covers. Tried to speak slowly because I feel like this is confusing. But I'm happy to talk this through with anyone who has questions.
So what we're looking at is based on the staff percentage allocations, the board, TALCB, is going to benefit, or we're going to reduce $15,500 on our expenses for essentially payroll expenses, right? Is that what we're talking about? And so the staff's recommendation is to use the savings of $15,500 and pay TREC under, tell me again, what, just as a
For basically general administrative expenses.
expenses,
An example
okay.
of this is right now we publish articles through our communications division that support the TALCB function. That is an expense covered by TREC right now, but it's a benefit that TALCB enjoys. We have 2 staff who handle all of our human resources issues. That's something not identified as a cost to TALCB. None of our finance staff are listed in the MOU as coverage by TALCB. Examples like that. This becomes particularly helpful as TREC tightens their budget, as they continue to wait, as we continue to wait on an approval for a fee increase, which is more and more imperative, but we have been on hold for about a year. Yeah. And so this, we have done an assessment, finance generally, that serves both TREC and TALCB, on what the total administrative cost allocation would be. It far exceeds the 15,000.
Which is what we discussed in the budget committee.
Correct. But so this would be kind of it would turn out to be a wash for both TREC and TALCB, but ends up, in my opinion, being kind of a good faith offering.
So the discussion we had in our budget committee for that amount that we talked about in terms of what we estimate the benefit, financial benefit would be, that number. So this 15,000 is reducing that number. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct. It's just a percentage of that number.
Okay. And then when would this be when would you guys be looking to put this in place?
This would and this is really the reason why I wanted to talk this through before you talk budget in item 27. We have not made an adjustment. Now, $15,000 is an adjustment that staff can make, most likely, to the budget without it coming back to you for any sort of approval. Okay. But we have not made any sort of adjustment to account for savings to TREC, the $15,500 in the current budget. If you approve this MOU with the $15,500 administrative cost allocation included, then the budget before you today would remain exactly the same.
Because it's a flush.
It has not been accounted.
So the only thing we're really adjusting on our current budget is our payroll line item. That was going to be reduced a little bit, and then we're adding a line item to accommodate this particular transfer. Is that
correct?
But the numbers remain the same. Okay, thank you for the explanation.
So Chelsea, is this number static, or is it, are we going to have to, if it does change, are we going to have to approve another change to the MOU?
So that's the beauty of this MOU. This MOU is just in effect until you make changes to it. You can agree to, I think the best way for changes to be made with this MOU are through coordination between TREC and TALCB leadership, meaning chairs. There is nothing that would make the $15,500 change unless this MOU were amended.
And this is on an annual basis, yes?
We typically bring this MOU to you just when there are changes.
No. I mean the payment.
Payment, yes.
How would that occur? Would that be over on a monthly basis or an annual basis?
I will let our CFO, Renata Williams, answer that, but I believe it would just be kind of a shifting at the beginning of the fiscal year in terms of like where cash is allocated.
Right.
Oh, she's so close. Exactly. Did I get it? Okay.
You hit it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on one hand, we're stewards of the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board. We are not stewards of the Texas Real Estate Commission. Chelsea wears 2 hats. She's the executive director for both, so I certainly understand her position. I am generally opposed to paying more for something that we didn't have to pay for. And I realize that's because of our agreement with TREC, but still, we're advocating for our agency. That being said, Chelsea, I do appreciate the fact that this is a zero-sum change. And so I appreciate that fact, and I take that factor in mind when I consider what my vote will be. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Chair, may I add to that, those comments? I appreciate too that it is a flush to the budget. It's equal out, so it's not necessarily affecting our numbers at the end of the day. as I think about it, I do believe that we probably should pay a portion of something, and I think we had that discussion as a committee, that, you know, it would be good for us to pay a portion of what we can. With that being said, what I want to make sure of is that if we approve this, then it's not going to be a continuous increase, right? Because based on how we structure our budget, we don't really have, I just want to make sure that it's not going to, that number's not going to continuously increase. I guess that would be my only concern.
Sure. You know, I think there's a lot of variables that will occur over the course of the next year, I would imagine, that may inform your decision on any increase approval in the future. But that would certainly be something that you would need to decide, because you would have to agree to make a change to the MOU. What I was thinking about is that if you play out a scenario where Trek does not get a fee increase, and we're in a position of reducing services in some way. By you covering expenses, you have the ability to fund what you need doing. And so I do not know how that will play out. I hope that that is not an issue. But if it is, I think by having this cost allocation in the MOU and sort of the precedent for it, you can then make a decision on what services, what general administrative services are important to you, and to what degree you pay for that.
Another question, Chelsea. These costs are allocated pursuant to Exhibit A with an additional cost allocation of X dollars for each fiscal year. Why is that blank?
That would be the 15,500
So
number.
should we put 15,500 into that?
I believe if you approve this MOU, your motion should include that number.
Changing that
Okay.
to be
thank you.
specific.
Do we know how much line items 1 through 6 actually cost? Correct, like I guess my question is, the 15.5, how much are we paying of that? What % of those total costs? I know you say it's not the total amount, but do we know that dollar
What
amount?
is the total amount? We recently did an estimate that was, I have 70 or 75,000 in my head. Was it 70?
It was 76,000.
76,000.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry. So of the 76,000, and that's the amount we discussed as a committee, in our budget committee. So are we saying that if we agree to do the 15.5, that Trek is good with that, to where we're not then asked to still do the 76? 20%. Is that fair to say, or?
Trek is not coming to you asking for 76,000.
That was
So-
just the estimate that we put together for our committee to review?
Correct. So I do not know what Trek will do tomorrow. I think it depends
Sure.
on what happens with their fee increase.
Right.
And I expect continued easy relations between the board and the commission. So if ever there's an inkling that there's discord related to this, I will share that information so that we can work it out. But I think this goes a long way, simply by not adding a cost to the Trek budget, essentially, and just towards goodwill.
And so playing for the other side of it, I mean, good faith gesture, but they also are advocating for their people as well. And so what would be the first things that they would be cutting if they don't do a fee increase would probably be something of this nature here, where, I mean, they're not having to work with it. Well, you know, I mean, that's my thinking. I was like, well, you know, I understand that we work together and stuff. Yeah, just putting a little bit towards that. If they're not going to do a fee increase and then they're having to cut budget, like, what would be the first things that they would be looking at in order to cut budget?
Probably something that we're involved in.
That's
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
that's my thinking.
And then we've got to come up with that money.
Because they're doing the same thing
Right.
we are, advocating for their and their profession. So
I mean, I definitely think it's a good faith, yeah. I think it's definitely a good faith effort, and we are financially sound. That's one thing as a budget committee, that we ensure that we are strong and financially sound to have a good runway, as we call it. if anything were to happen. So we make sure we have a contingency plan that's in place for that. So if we're talking this budget cycle, I would be all on board for that because I know how healthy we are as a financially as a board or as an agency. I would just want to make sure we're reevaluating this year over year because who's to say we're going to continue to have the ability to pay them $15,000. So that would be my only concern is the year over year commitment to that.
I have one thing to add too. So this 20%, do we actually, how do our expenses as compared to Trek in general? I mean, 20% seems like a big number to me, the 15,500 as part of the 76,000.
So
Do
the
we really spend 20%?
Well, you really spend 76,000. And so the 20% would just be a small, just that you're covering 20% of the administrative costs that
And
you
we
incur.
use 20%. We really
Yeah,
do.
you
We
really
use
use
more than that.
100%. Like, so the 76,000 is the estimated expenses that you,
That the board,
that the board utilizes for IT, HR, communications.
76, okay.
Yes.
And that's being covered currently by Trek's budget, not us. So they're basically paying the 76,000 for us to be able to use those.
us.
Yes. So that's where the 15,000 would come in as a good faith effort to try to pay some of our portion
Okay.
of the expense.
So Chelsea, with the MOU, here we're potentially voting to include this additional payment or allocation, however you want to state it. And I'm assuming that Trek will vote to accept that change to the MOU. What happens if next year there is a different scenario, whatever it is, and we feel as a board it's no longer appropriate to make that additional payment? Do we have any recourse?
That's such a, I mean, I think it seems naive to say we navigate that in time, but I think each year we navigate these variables and we work them out. So there's no difference in that next year. I mean, if you decide against paying 15,500 or some amount, you then request an amendment and we go from there.
And we go through this process pretty much again.
Correct.
The
So
MOU can
Well, I
be
guess what I'm asking
renegotiated.
is, where does the authority lie?
I can tell you're in the business of litigation because I think this basically then goes towards the enforceability of a contract. Is an MOU a contract essentially? You want to talk? I think we would need, I don't think we have an
got
answer to
two
that
lawyers
question
here.
here.
Well, Executive Director Buckles stated it. It is, each agency can amend this at any time. It was designed that way. This is one of those like hypothetical, obviously, situations where like play it out till the end. I mean, there's all these stops that would happen in between that to the chairs having a discussion. You could potentially have a joint budget committees meetings having that discussion. So, there is a mechanism. And I think at the very end, there's also, there's a notice to each side that you can give. Like this is kind of the nuclear scenario. I think one of the last provisions of the MOU is 365 days notice of termination. Yes.
Right, okay. Well, like I said, I want to understand where we stand.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that answer.
I appreciate you making it clear. I was, with the numbers, I wasn't clear.
Yeah, and
I
it
guess
was,
I'll
and,
tell.
and as a budget committee, we did ask them to put that together because we did want to know financially, what are we talking about in terms of what they're paying for us? So when we saw it and they presented it to us, it was pretty eye-opening to see how much expenses, how much of our expenses they actually are covering on our behalf. So thank you guys for putting that together. That was very helpful.
Can I ask one question?
Absolutely. You can ask more than one if you want to.
Is the, I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. Is there any risk that Trek decides to charge the entire 76,000 if we say we don't want to contribute something?
I'll say yes, but no. I think we have a much better relationship than that. And I have not gotten any indication of that from the Trek side. I met with the chair of Trek yesterday, outlined what I was presenting to you on this MOU. He's also on the Trek Budget Committee. He's very aware, feels really comfortable with it. I haven't gotten any indication that says that there would be a demand coming. I think I would know that. I know I would know that. And I would warn you. But it's not the current relationship we're in, and nor do I want it to be during my tenure. Like, I think a lot of this is on me, essentially, to navigate the different pieces and make sure that there's consensus there.
Well, I'd like some assurance that we will continue, even though there may be new allocations, that we are going to maintain the status quo, though, from a budget standpoint. And so, I don't want this to be every year we come
grow
back and
legs.
ask for more money.
Sure, yeah. I think that's very reasonable.
Well, I definitely think that it's a good faith effort, and I appreciate the expenses that they have been covering for us. So I would be in agreement, and if it's appropriate to make a motion, I would make a motion that the board approves the staff's recommendation for adding the $15,500 towards the Trek budget, with the acceptance of the other changes, which would create a wash that you mentioned on staff allocation percentages.
I have a motion.
Is there a second? Do we have a second?
We have a second?
I have a quick question. When was the last time that the MOU was amended?
That's a great question. Was it amended? I think it was amended last year. Most often, it is amended as staff duties shift. And if you'll remember, was it this time last year that we were addressing Dionne Frederick's death, and then the shifting of her responsibilities to Amber Hinton as the new recording secretary. And so there was some shifting there.
Okay, thank you.
And what was the amendment?
It was just the amendment to shift duties. And so there were
It wasn't
staff
a
percentage
numbers.
change. There may have been a cost shift, but my recollection is like a $10,000 or less shift between who's doing what, and therefore what TALCB covers at what percentage.
I'll go ahead and second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Well, actually, one thing I'd like to say is that, does your motion include that it's 15,500, or is it still blank?
My motion definitely includes changing the verbiage specifically to 15,500 for us to pay our portion towards that, and specifically changing the verbiage to confirm those percentages of the allocations of the staff, which would cause a wash to where our budget would not be affected. The bottom line would not be affected.
Okay, so does your second still stand?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now we're going to shift to agenda item 27, discussion and possible action to amend not 27, 24, discussion of possible action regarding the TALCB fiscal year 2026 budget and financial administration policy and investment policy. Good morning, Mrs. Williams.
Good morning, Chair Bolton and Board. Agenda item 24, discussion regarding the FY26 draft budget, the financial policies, and the investment policy. The materials for the budget were presented under separate cover and not included in the public meeting materials. As a recap, the Budget Committee met on July 1st to review the second draft of the budget, the policies as well. And the budget is presented as a 3-year budget The first year labeled 2026 is the only year intended to be adopted, while projected 27 and 28 are to be considered as a forecast. Some of the highlights that are going to be included in the budget are that we are not adding any additional FTEs this budget cycle. However, we are budgeting for a 3% merit for all salary and wages. There's a $5,000 was added to professional fees and services to be allocated towards the internal audit contract that's typically paid by TREC so that the scope could be expanded. We examined our other operating expense categories and identified that we could eliminate some costs, such as some subscriptions that we had. We canceled a few memberships that were not necessarily required for staff to do their jobs, and decreased the number of attendees that we're sending to conferences, which would also save on registration fees and travel. So we are cutting costs where we can. In regards to the revenue overview, that's going to be on page 5 of your budget materials. Our projections are relatively flat. 2026 is an even year, so we expect to collect more revenue in the AMC fee category since most of the renewals for this license type occurred during the even years. We have a slight decrease in license fees, and this is due to a decrease in trainee applications and new certified appraiser applications. This reduction also affects our exam revenue since we have fewer people submitting initial applications to get into the industry. We have fewer people who are registering to take an exam. So those two kind of go hand in hand. In FY27, we're projecting to collect $2.1 million. And again, in 28, it goes back up to 2.5. So as you can see throughout the years, our revenue is staying pretty flat, 2.1, 2.5, 2.1, 2.5. As we move on to the next page, our expenses are projected to be approximately $2.5 million in 26. This is in line with our projections for the previous years. There's a slight increase in salary and wages, and again, that's to accommodate the 3% for the merits. We had the $5,000 increase in professional fees and services category to account for the internal audits. And you'll also notice that we're also maintaining that $150,000 line item for contract support that we've had in the budget for years, just in case we need it. There's a slight increase in 27 and 28, pushing our expenses to approximately $2.8 million. And this is due primarily to the 3% merit that we allocate for staff. No other fee categories or expense categories increased. On page 7 of your supplemental materials, this is where you'll see like the line item detail. Let's see. Make sure I get to it. And I should have been there. Okay. And we are projecting to start out. Okay, sorry. My screen is just doing its own thing right now. We're projecting that we're going to start FY26 with $2.7 million. It decreases to $2.6 million in 27, and then to $2.2 million in 28. Well, let me see if this picture is coming up now. Sorry, I'm having some IT problems and my page is blank. Here we go. All right. Let me start that page back over. Now that my page is now displaying, sorry about that. For the budget, line item budget, starting on page 7, beginning balance, $4 million. We'll have $1.2 million for our operating reserve, which is what's identified in the budget and investment policies. And that's roughly 6 months of our expenditures. We have an unreserved fund balance of $2.7 million for FY26. This is the excess funding that we were talking about. We're projecting $2.5 million in revenue. We do have $34,384 currently in the education reserve, and that's because we collected 2 AMC admin penalties this year. We previously had zeroed out that account. We didn't have anything in there. We actually closed that account in 23, I believe, and then we had these 2 admin penalties, so we had to place the funds there that we can utilize for expenses. Expenditures are estimated to be $2.5 million. And as you can see, our expenditures are more than our revenue. So that is an operational loss of $84,000.
And may I just add something on that?
Yes, ma'am.
That is by design. Just to be clear, we've always had a very strong budget and have been in the black for a while. So when we were operating in the black, we noticed that our numbers for our unreserved amount kept growing and growing and growing. So as a board, we said, okay, we don't need to sit on that much money. So we need to have a plan to start spending some of that down just to be responsible and not continue to just have a pile of money sitting there. So as we are looking at the budget numbers, when you see that the bottom line being a negative, that is why. It is strictly by design so that we could start to lower that pot of money that we were sitting on. Just to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And then as we start at FY27, we're projecting our beginning balance will be $3.9 million. We have $1.3 million for our operating reserves, which leaves $2.6 million as unreserved fund balance. We have $2.1 million for our projected revenue collection and $2.6 million for our expenditures. And since this is an even year, you'll notice that our revenue collections are, significantly less than our expenditures. They're around 2.1 million. Expenditures are staying flat at 2.6. And so that creates an operational loss of 442,000. And that's where we use the unreserved fund balance to cover that deficit. We'll start FY28 with 3.4 million. 1.3 million for operating reserves, 2.1 million would be our unreserved fund balance. We're projecting 2.5 million for revenue, 2.6 million for our operating expenses, which leaves us with an operational deficit of $162,922 for FY28.
Can you explain so that everybody understands why we see these dips in revenue?
Yes, sir, and it's primarily because based on timing. We have the majority of our AMCs, our appraisal management companies, they renew or they started their licenses in like 2012. And so there's a 2-year renewal period. So it just alternates even in odd years. So we see the flux of our revenue from the AMC companies in those even years, and then in the regular odd years, we just see our regular appraisal renewals.
It seems like I guess I understand that. It seems like the professional fees also went every other year until you get into 26, 27, 28, and then it doesn't raise and lower in proportion with the revenue. Why does that trend not continue?
I think in 26, 27, 28, we decided, one, we are going to decrease that contract that we had for contract support. It was $175,000, then it was reduced to $150,000. But as we may have greater efficiencies with the new realm portal, we may not need that at all. And so we're just starting to decrease that placeholder for professional
And you'll
fees.
notice on that placeholder as well, what we budget versus what the actual is. So we budget a set aside to keep it for safe, just in case we need to use it. But you also notice the actual is far less than that. So we have not had to use that amount, but we kept it in the budget in the event the agency needs that additional support. But yeah, there's a big discrepancy in actual versus budgeted, and that would be why is we put that as a set aside.
And I'll tell you, that came about, I don't know, when we were coming out of a sunset review, and it was not we had a huge backlog in enforcement cases, and so we budgeted to bring on contract appraisers to do reviews in those enforcement cases, and so that's where that came from. And since then, we've done a great job of speeding up that process and making the backlog disappear. And so I don't know.
That's great
something
context.
we
That's
might-
great context. Yeah.
Yeah, we may want to explore that in the future. That we don't need that because clearly we're not spending those dollars. Anyway, just to give you some context.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions on page 7 before I continue? All right, so moving on to page 8 is just your historical revenue analysis. You can see how much we've projected that we'd collect starting back from 2020 and projected all the way through 28 and what our actual revenue collections were. Again, you can see that even years are our high years, odd years are our lower revenue collecting years. At the bottom of that page, you're also going to see several applications and renewal types that we have and what those counts were for the actual, number of applications we received for a certified general appraiser application, or the number of applications we received for a trainee application, and how much revenue we collected as a result of those. And you can see the fluctuations in how we're having a decrease in our trainee applications. We're also having a decrease in our certified general appraiser application, so that affects our revenue. And on page 9, we have agency staffing. This is just for informational purposes. That shows you those positions, the FTEs that was allotted to the board, how many were vacant, how many are filled, and that we are not proposing any new vacancies. At the bottom is showing you how much the authorized salary cost would be. And that concludes the actual FY26 budget document. Are there any additional questions before I move on to the budget and financial policies? Okay. Well, those policies, excuse me, the budget policy and the investment policies, they're provided for your review. You do not have to make any changes, and actually the budget committee at our meeting on July 1st elected not to make any changes to those documents. And so they both include the same verbiage as the policies that were approved at the August 2024 meeting. And these policies outline such things as, when our budget reports due, when we're gonna approve the budget, what an appropriation means, how we're going to look at our variances and things of that nature. The investment policy covers things such as our reserve accounts, what's our minimum that we're going to keep in those accounts and things of that nature. Do I have any questions regarding those two policies? Hearing none, the staff recommendation is that the board approve the FY26 budget, the FY26 investment policy, and the FY26 budget and financial policy as presented.
Have a motion.
Yes, Chair, I move that the board approves the fiscal 2026 budget, budget and financial administration policy, and investment policy as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank
Any
you.
opposed? All right.
Thank you for your hard work, and thank you
Thank
to the
you.
staff.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
the
guys for your hard work.
explanations.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, so that covers 24. Now we go back to 15, executive session. I don't think we have any reason to be in executive session, so we will skip 15 and go to 16. Discussion and possible action to adopt amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code as follows.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, Kathleen Santos, General Counsel. I know this is your favorite part of our meeting when we get to the rules. And just a little bit of background, we are at the rules for possible adoption. And for all our new folks, anyone watching, this is where at the last meeting, these rules were proposed. And they were posted on the register. The public and any stakeholders had an opportunity to post any comments that might make us fiddle with rules and change them and either adopt or repropose or not adopt. And so here we are. We're at the stage where these rules could be potentially adopted. So agenda item number 16, we have 22, 153.13, 153.18, 153.23, and 153.40. So the rules before you here are part of the board's quadrennial rule review, and this, generally speaking, is a process where all state agencies review their rules every 4 years and determine whether or not the reasons for their adoption still exist, whether they need to be repealed or adopted with amendments. So this is a time that we take the opportunity to clean up our rules and make any other changes necessary to our rules to here specifically 153. So you'll see the language in the rules, using a process acceptable to the board. That's a result of the Realm portal that was mentioned earlier. We're moving more to an online system, not using paper applications. So this language is clarified to reflect that change. And just more of an FYI, that's something they're also making on the Trek side for the same reason within their rules for the same portal. The amendments also conform our rules to the requirements of the AQB, the Appraiser Qualification Board, that go into effect on January 1st that Executive Director Boltholtz mentioned. That changed a title of a course, the minimum duration of the course, and specific subject matter requirements, and that was the specific valuation bias and fair housing topics that go into effect. No comments are received, and so staff's recommendations is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to submit for adoption amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code Chapter 153 as published, along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for adoption. And I'm available for any questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions? I would entertain a motion.
Chair Bolton, I move that the board approve staff's recommendation.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Agenda,
So now we're on to 17, discussion of possible action to adopt amendment to 22 Texas Administrative Code as follows.
right, and these rules begin on page 80 of your materials, and the specific rules, for the interest of time, are listed specifically in materials and also included on the agenda. So the amendments before you to Chapter 153 and 159 are, again, made as following the rule review, and also as a result of the Realm portal. So as we're moving to that new online system. Using that language again, using a process acceptable to the board, and that's just sprinkled out. Anytime that applied, we made that update in our rule. Again, we did not receive any comments, so staff's recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to submit for adoption amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Chapters 153 and 159 as published, along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for adoption.
Okay, any questions, anybody? Okay,
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve staff's recommendation.
And I will second.
okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on to 18. Discussion of possible action to adopt amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 153.19, licensing for persons with criminal history and fitness determination.
Okay, this is on page 97 of your materials. This item actually relates to the one that we just both addressed, you all just addressed in 17 and 19. This rule was initially proposed last meeting, and so it is not up for adoption because there were some additional changes. Session happened sort of in between, and so we have to implement a bill. And so the mechanism for us to do this is to withdraw the rule, and then in the next item, we can repropose with the changes, because this is where that language that you all love about technical and non-substantive changes, well, those updates were neither technical nor non-substantive, so we have to go ahead and repropose that and give the public an opportunity to comment. And so with that, staff's recommendations is to withdraw the amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Section 153.19, along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for proposal.
Any questions? I will entertain
Okay,
a motion.
I'm sorry. I did have a quick, okay, say that again. I just want to make sure I clearly understand what we're doing.
This item here is just to withdraw the proposal of this
Okay.
rule, because in the next item, that's before you would be to propose it with the changes.
Okay. And the changes were brought about from the last session?
Yes,
Legislative
and I can
session.
go
Okay.
over those specific changes in the next item, but this
Okay.
is just truly pulling this
Gotcha.
one back.
Thank you.
Chair Bolton, I move that the board approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to agenda item 19.
Discussion and possible action, propose amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Section 153.19, licensing for persons with criminal history and fitness determination. Okay, so a little bit shift on where we are in the agenda. Now we're at the proposed rules where the board would vote to propose rules for notice and comment, and the next meeting we would have an opportunity to adopt those rules. So earlier I mentioned, we previously set these out for proposal, and then SB 1080 passed the legislature. And what that made changes to is Chapter 53 of the occupation codes, and that governs how we treat criminal history, how it impacts licensing, how it impacts whether or not to revoke a license. There was some language added to the chapter that contemplated certain work programs that someone who was currently in prison could become licensed. And this wouldn't include anything like super bad offenses that normally you would think of that would disqualify someone, or something that has to do with the duties and responsibilities of an appraiser. It wouldn't include anything of those offenses that would qualify under that. And so with that, we're adding that qualifying language in our rules where it says subject to the requirements of Chapter 53 to take those changes to the statute into account in updating the rule and aligning with statute. So staff's recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the board to submit amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Section 153.19, as presented for publication and public comment to the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for a proposal. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions? I will entertain a motion.
Chair Bolton, I move that the board approve the staff's recommendations.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next, we are actually going to, again, shift some things around and go to agenda item 22. Ms. Santos?
All right, discussion and possible action to propose amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Section 153.6, military service member, military veteran, and military spouse applications. Again, we have amendments here that are to implement legislative changes. HB 5629 amends Chapter 55, which covers licensing for members of the military, veterans, and military spouses. And a lot of the amendments you see in the language focus on reciprocity. Practically speaking, we already have reciprocity within our occupations code. And so members of the military, if whether or not they go through this route, but we need to comply with the statute, so we have to update our rules accordingly. And we apply the law as it does apply to us. So essentially the biggest changes here is you have language where we would be processing these applications within 30 days. That's now moving to 10 days, 10 business days to align with statute. And just for FYI, we typically issue these between 3 and 5 business days. So we're primed to stay within these requirements. There was a replacement page a few days ago that was sent out, page 119. There was a subtle change to the language that would have changed the duration of someone, how long they practice in the event of a divorce, and that language has been updated to align with statute. So staff's recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to submit amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Section 153.6, as presented for publication and public comment to the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for proposal. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Any
opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're moving to 25.
Keeping it spicy.
We're on our toes.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, board members. Melissa Tran, Director of TALCB. This item was introduced to you at the last board meeting, and it asks for you to consider whether Texas should establish an approval process for practicum providers and courses. Materials for this item are on page 123. I'm going to give a little bit of a recap and give you some context for this discussion. As you know, one of the biggest barriers to entry into the appraiser profession is the experience requirement. Currently, the main way trainees gain experience to become an appraiser is through the trainee supervisor model. In this model, you have to be able to find someone who's willing to take you under their wing, and this has been really challenging for those trying to enter the profession without a connection, such as a family member or friend. The practicum program is intended to provide an additional pathway to gain experience. During the last board meeting, you heard from Melissa Bond, who created the Mississippi Practicum program and has since successfully launched in several other states. Also at the last meeting, you asked that staff gather 2 pieces of information. The first being feedback from AMCs on areas of geographic need, and the second being information on staff resources it would take to stand up an approval program. To gather the first part of this, we sent a survey to all of the AMCs in the state of Texas, about 160. The responses were pretty underwhelming. We actually only got 4 AMCs to respond, but those results are on page 125 of your materials. From these results, we see a pretty good clusters of counties that need appraisers in West Texas, surrounding Lubbock, a handful in both East and South Texas. And while we cannot force any of these providers to provide in these areas, we can give them the information and encourage them to. The second piece of information I was asked to provide is staff resources it would take to stand up an approval program. Based on current demand, which is only 2 practicum programs, we can do it with the staff resources that we have, so we wouldn't have to hire anybody new. I also gathered a third piece of information that I thought would be really important to you in your decision making. I reached out to both of the possible practicum providers and asked them how many people were on their wait list in the state of Texas. Combined, they responded about 100. And so we didn't really hear from AMCs, but we do know from the aspiring appraiser side that there is a demand for this. Okay, so with all of this information, it was presented to the Education and Licensing Committee, and they were supportive of standing up an approval program. And based on all of this, staff recommends that you approve a creation of an approval process for practicum providers and practicum courses in Texas. And with that, I'll take any questions.
I just want to say, I think this is a great avenue for people to gain experience. You know, it is tough for trainees to find a supervisor. And so finding these new ways to lower barriers to entry is something that I would encourage y'all to consider in your vote.
I would also add, thank you guys so much for being so diligent in getting that information to us. And thank you for inviting the last person to speak and explain the whole program to us. But I agree, we're talking about getting fresh faces into our industry. This is a great opportunity to do that. So thank you for the hard work and the research that you guys presented on that.
Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, the last time we did this, it was to deal with Perea, which was, we had the same kind of discussions and brought people in that were doing that program. And it seems to have worked so far, and I haven't heard anybody complain about it. There is a long waiting list for that as well. And we've had success stories. So I think us in the Education Committee were hoping for this thing as we've got all the information to us, and we kind of gathered that, took that in, and then just said, you know what, I think this is another avenue for aspiring appraisers to get in on, to be able to bolster our profession, and I've actually talked to the Mississippi person on the board and stuff, and they have found that practicum has worked fine for them. Great. Yeah, we wouldn't be the first, but I wouldn't mind us being a part of it. So.
If we were to approve it, when would it go into effect?
It depends on when the providers submit their applications.
Okay. that
And
makes
then
sense.
Kat has some rules that she's going to propose to
Okay,
you.
that makes sense.
So they'll have to go through the rulemaking process as well.
Do you guys know how long the or how long the process would take? I'm just curious.
I really don't know. I think it'll probably, it's going to be really document intensive. We'd have to look at their entire program. So I'll keep you posted as we move along, but I think in the first couple, at least, we're going to probably take our time with it, just like with everything. And then once we get our feet under us, we'll be able to go a little bit faster.
Makes sense.
Okay, any more questions?
Chair, I move that we direct staff to create an approval process for the practicum course providers and courses as presented.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we are back on track to item number 20, discussion possible action to propose amendments 22 Texas Administrative Code as follows.
All right, back on rules again. So the last item you heard from Director Tran regarding regarding the approval process and the rules before you in sections 153.1 and 153.15, those proposed amendments would align our rules with that practicum process. So just to take these in turns, first, simply, we're adding a definition of practicum courses in our rules. And second, we'd be adding practicum courses as a category of experience that may be acceptable for satisfying whatever applicable experience requirement. And that's in Rule 153. And we're specifying that as a practicum course approved by the other us or the AQB, because if it's approved by the AQB, we would accept it automatically. It would apply to all states. And then again, I wanted to mention subsection J would be adding that we specify that we would accept as evidence of completion of a practicum program would be a valid certificate of approved program. That's based on feedback we'd received from the ASC. And then just a little bit of an aside, that's just kind of a good example of the communication we have with the ASC whenever we're implementing something new. We want to make sure that that's not going to be a problem further along the line. And that's something that they suggested and they were fine with. So based on that feedback, we're adding that language specifically that someone would just need to submit that certificate for claiming credit for us, for someone who completed a approved program, and that's consistent with how we treat someone who goes through the Perea program. We accept that certificate. Staff's recommendations is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to submit amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code sections 153.1 and 153.15 as presented for publication and public comment in the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for proposal, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions?
Chairman Bolton, we move that the board approve staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we move to agenda item 21, discussion of possible action to propose rules to 22 Texas Administrative Code as follows.
All right, this is to propose new rules, 153.42, approval of practicum providers and courses, and 153.43, providers and courses compliance and enforcement. And just to distinguish between what you just did in the prior action, these are brand-new rules. They, in theory, should look familiar because they're modeled after how we handle education providers. So it's consistent with what we currently do. And this would ensure we have a process for ensuring compliance, for complaints, prohibited activity, disciplinary action. Staff's recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to submit new rules, 22 Texas Administrative Code sections 153.42 and 153.43 as presented for publication and public comment to the register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for proposal. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions? I would hear a motion.
Chair Bolton, I move that the board approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we move to item 23, discussion of possible action to review, to close review of 22 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 153, rules relating to provisions of the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Act.
Okay, so this would conclude our review of Chapter 153 for rule review. And I mentioned earlier, this is the process where we review all our rules, make sure the reasons they should still exist. This is that closing thing of this chapter. But stay tuned in February, we will be opening up a new chapter because our approach is to just constantly review instead of everything in a single year every 4 years. We'll just keep it rolling. So staff's recommendations is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to close review of 22 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 153, rules relating to the provisions of the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Act.
Any questions? I'll hear a motion, please.
Chair, move that the board approve staff's recommendations.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're on to agenda item 26, discussion of possible action regarding possible topics for the November workshop. Do we have any possible discussion?
I'll stick around up here. I did write down,
Mind us.
Yes, please remind us, yeah.
well, historically, this was always kind of an opportunity to go through a lot of the content within the board training material guide, a general overview. Statutorily, the minimum requirements is to update it regularly, provide it for you all to review annually. But that, I think historically, what we've done is when we have new board members, we take it as an opportunity for a bit of a refresher. Just to note some of the suggestions that have been provided since probably about February or within the last year. We talked about practicum courses, an overview of what we do as an agency, what's the ASC, what's USPAP, just very basic, or not basic, but like these foundational sort of overview. And then also what was mentioned a few meetings back was to kind of talk through our investment reports. Let's touch on that. And so, we can provide like a general overview, but if there is any other specific topics you wanted to focus on.
I'd like to go through USPAP standard by standard.
We're going to be here all week long.
Nay, no.
No, that sounds great. That sounds like a good program.
Let's see. I'm trying to remember when I came on board what was very helpful, because I would love for Mark and Clayton to get as much out of this as possible. Are there anything in particular that you guys would want included in that workshop that would be beneficial as you guys come on to the board?
I think learning a little more about the obstacles that these trainees are finding,
Okay.
trying to find a mentor. I would like to be caught up on some of the stats, like how many appraisers are taking them on, how many
Yep.
are not, that kind of thing.
That's great. That's great. Anything else? Because the workshops are so helpful to flush all that out. Anything else you guys would want included?
And if there's something that you can't think of now, but you
Yeah.
think of later, you can email Kat and
For
she
sure.
can include that in the agenda.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 28, report on Public Funds Investment Act training compliance.
Good morning again. Renata Williams, Chief Financial Officer. Agenda item 28, report on the Public Funds Investment Act training compliance. In accordance with Texas Government Code 2256.007D, the investment officer shall prepare a report on the subchapter investment training, state agency board members and officer, not later than the 180th day after the last day of regular session of the legislature. Mouthful. The Public Funds Investment Act requires that the governing body members and its investment officers attend at least one training related to the person's responsibility under this chapter within 6 months after taking office or assuming duties. In addition, the investment officers must attend training sessions not less than once each state fiscal biennium. This report affirms that the governing board and its investment officers are in compliance with the PFIA training requirements. The next page lists all of the governing body members, both TREC and TLCB, their date of appointment, and when training was completed.
That's just related to the investment training? Right.
Yes, ma'am. And this is a requirement that we do. Every biennium, we provide this report.
I just thought of something on the November workshops. For the new board members and for a refresher for us, can we do a little bit of training on the walking quorums and those types of things as well? I think that would be helpful. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry.
Kat said, yes, ma'am. All right, this concludes my report on agenda item 28.
Okay, any questions?
No.
Okay, so there's nothing to, no motion required. So we'll go to the next, the report on fiscal year 2025 internal audits.
Yes. Agenda item 29, report on the 2025 internal audits. This starts on page 171 of your materials. And if you just turn to page 173, you'll see the draft of the letter that is required to be sent to the Office of the Governor by November the 1st. And this is reporting on our audit activity for fiscal year 2025. This is an annual reporting requirement. This report provides an update on all of the audits that were completed during the FY 2025 period that were on the, the audit plan and their completion status. The final report for all completed audits are posted on our website as well as submitted to the State Auditor's Office. This report confirms that there were no deviations from the plan and all audits were completed. In section 5 of the report, it also gives a brief overview of the audits that are proposed for the internal audit plan for FY26. These audits are what the Joint Audit Committee members decided would be the focus based on the risk assessment performed by the auditors. The final draft of the FY 2025 internal audit report will be posted on our website.
Okay, next agenda item 30, report on internal audit plan for 2026.
Yes, agenda item 30, report on the internal audit plan for FY 2026. Again, you will see a draft of the letter that will be sent to the Office of the Governor, as well as the report that contains all of the audits that are going to be proposed for the FY 2026 year. As mentioned previously, the Joint Audit Committee decided on which audits we would pursue. And the auditors provided how many hours they think it would take to complete each audit and what the amounts would be. And so this report details the risk assessment, shows the proposed audit, the hours, the time frame of when each of those audits will be completed. The final draft of this approved internal audit plan for FY 2026 will also be posted on our website.
Thank you.
No
Okay,
problem.
moving to 31, discussion regarding 2024 annual report for the annual subcommittee.
Hello again. All right, included in your materials, starting on page 188, is that annual report of the appraisal subcommittee. We've included this in your materials for the past several years. It's usually comes out in the summertime, and then it ends up being on this August meeting. As a reminder for everyone watching, the ASC is the federal agency that provides oversight and monitors as state regulatory agencies for appraisers, appraisal management companies, and they also provide oversight to the Appraisal Foundation that is over that board that makes the minimum criteria, and then the board that does USPAP, that makes USPAP. So for this annual report, they deliver it to Congress and they report on what they've been doing in the prior years. I just kind of talk about it structurally. The first 20 pages or so are more of the reporting, and then it's followed by miles of appendices. But just to highlight a few, on page 193 of your materials, there's the message from the acting chair. In the second paragraph, they discuss how the ASC saw an overall decline in the number of states performing well, and they attribute that to the lingering effects of the pandemic. In that same thread, I'd also like to point out that we've received the rating of excellent for both of our programs in that time frame. They also include information on their budget, their grants program, and then also I'd also note the changes in leadership that happened at the ASC that we've been keeping you up to date, and also at the Appraisal Foundation. And so It's a nice summary document. I think this is information that we regularly disseminate to you all as they happen in real time, but it's a nice document that kind of condenses everything. And so, no action, but if you all wanted to discuss and there's any questions, that's why it's typically.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Kat. Moving on to 32, discussion of possible action regarding agenda items for future meetings. Anybody have anything? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to agenda item 33, discussion of possible action to schedule future meeting dates. We have the workshop in November in meeting on the 13th and 14th. We have tentatively scheduled February 20th, 2026 and May 15th, 2026. I don't see any reason to change any of that. Let's just put that on our calendars, and if something comes up, we'll address it. Okay, so agenda 34, I can't believe we got through this. I appreciate everybody. This is great. And I think that's a successful first meeting, so I appreciate that too.
Job well done.
Well done.
All right, we stand adjourned.